Industry on Parade. Peabody Award winner for public service, produced on film each week by the National Association of Manufacturers.
On George's Shoal in the North Atlantic, 110 miles east of Cape Cod, Massachusetts, the nearest land, a man-made island on the ocean surface. It's the first of a string of 5 offshore radar stations designed to fill a serious chink in our aircraft war. With a group of engineers, newsmen, and others, an Industry on Parade cameraman goes aboard for a first inspection of the tower after it is placed in operation. Access to the platform is by means of a whaleboat raised by a winch. Some of the visitors represent private industries that made important contributions to the design and direction of this unique structure, which is a highly modified version of the Texas towers used in drilling for oil in the Gulf of Mexico. One such visitor is William Dewey, a partner in the Boston engineering firm of Anderson, Nichols and Company, the gentleman in glasses. He directed an engineering survey for the Navy to prove the feasibility of putting up the tower here in some of the stormiest waters in the world, then developed plans for carrying out the difficult assignment. Diesel generators develop enough power for radio, radar, heating, lighting, air conditioning, cooking, and the other needs of some 70 Air Force, Navy, Weather Bureau, and Coast Guard personnel who are stationed out here for 30 days at a time. A chaplain is one of the 70 men assigned to the lonely duty. The predominant reason for erecting these 6,000-ton islands of steel was to give the Air Defense Command the vital 20 minutes advance notice of the approach of unknown aircraft toward the East Coast. Thus, around the clock, radar and radio men check on all flights in the area covered by their equipment. At word from this operations room, jet fighter planes at bases on the coast scramble in a matter of seconds and roar out to sea to intercept potential attackers. Happily, this proves to be a dry run. An unexpected aspect of the tower's usefulness is revealed when a sailor aboard a destroyer in the area is seriously injured in a fall. He's transferred to the tower as a hurry-up call is put in for a helicopter from the mainland. Less than an hour after his fall, the sailor will be in a hospital ashore, getting the best of treatment. Did we say this efficient handling of the situation was unexpected? With the defense problems that exist in today's world being what they are, nothing can be unexpected. The military and the American industries that back them up are doing their level best to be ready for anything.
Population experts tell us we'll number 220 millions by 1975, 60 millions more than now. These new Americans will need many things, and today's luxuries will be tomorrow's necessities. Machine development will make this dream a reality. In addition to goods of every description, Americans in 1975 will need more jobs to support an expanding population. Can we have wonderful and more efficient machines and jobs in increasing numbers at the same time? The history of industry says we can. The practice of industry says we will.
In the evaporating room of a food processing plant, carefully applied heat drives off the moisture from liquid foods, preparing them for transformation into dry solids. Powdered milk and eggs, instant coffee and sugar are just a few of the dry foods processed in this way. And the food industry is only one of many using such equipment. Chemical, paper, and petroleum refining plants are some of the others that turn to firms like Goslin-Birmingham Manufacturing Company of Birmingham for the evaporators so necessary to their operations. Though the equipment is generally massive and constructed of heavy gauge metals, it must be assembled with scrupulous attention to the close tolerances indicated on the blueprints. Roll forming even such heavy plate as this into perfect cylinders presents no serious problem, but giving the metal more complicated forms, cone shape for example, calls for the skill of long experience. This is one of those industries whose products are sold only to other industries, never to the general public. But as consumers of the products processed in equipment like this, we are all as vitally concerned with the quality and cost of such machines as though there were one in every basement. After the sub-assemblies are completed, they're brought together for welding. Here's where careful attention to the blueprints pays off, for all abutting surfaces must jibe perfectly and almost invariably do. As heating element and vapor head are welded together, a constant check is made to be sure there is no distortion. A cumbersome piece of equipment and an unfamiliar one to most of us. But as we fill our gasoline tanks, read our morning newspaper, or spoon sugar into our coffee, we might remember that without efficient equipment like this in the factories, all those products and many others would be far more costly to buy, or perhaps might not be available at any price.
From a $500,000 stock of plain and fancy grain leathers in this Darby, Pennsylvania storeroom, a worker picks up an assortment of hides selected for immediate processing. The products to be manufactured out of them include various accessories for men. But by far the biggest use for leather here at the Pioneer Suspender Company is in the making of belts. The operation begins with the cutter, a man who astonishes even his apprentice with his ability to detect instantly how best to square off this alligator skin so as to produce the least amount of waste and the maximum strength and beauty. Squared strips of leather next pass through strippers, which slice them several at a time into belt widths. Some of the fancier hides, like alligator or snakeskin, because of their rough backs, are lined with smooth calfskin and cowhides. Machines in use today are a far cry from those available to the founder of the company when, back in 1877, he went into business by making leather straps for school books in his basement. In those days, holes were punched by hand, and stain, if applied at all, was put on by hand too. Not by machines like this one, guided by electronic controls. Edges of the belts are still most easily stained by hand. Stretch-type buckles are attached like this. If you think of belts as a more or less standard piece of male apparel, you'll be surprised to learn that this company alone turns out belts in more than 600 different styles, materials, and colors. With the increasing popularity of casual sports clothes, belts have come into their own and now must be attractive as well as effective. The future very bright indeed, especially with Junior's wardrobe being patterned more and more on his dad's. Incidentally, this may be the company's crowning achievement, designing a belt that will hold up the trousers of an active, hipless young boy.
We Americans are always trying to find better ways of doing things. Our forefathers, who pioneered and discovered new frontiers in this country, have been supplanted by the scientists and technicians in American industries' laboratories. Every day, every week, every year, someone is discovering a new product or improving an old one which will benefit all of us. Each year, industry spends more than $2.5 billion in research that creates new jobs, more and better products, which help all of us to continually improve our standard of living.
Industry on Parade visits a Newark firm which, though it has only 45 employees, is a giant in its field, the field of restoring old books. Though this may not look much like restoration, getting rid of the old cover is the first step in the process here at Pademaker Bookbinding Company. After mending torn pages and sanding old stitching and glue off the spine of the book, they sew the pages together again. The books come here for rebinding from a variety of sources, schools and public libraries, of course, and private collectors. But some of the more important customers are industrial libraries, maintained by companies in every imaginable field, a reflection of the emphasis being placed on industrial research. After resewing, the edges are retrimmed. Obviously, rebinding a book is a more difficult process than was binding it in the first place. And that's why it's worthwhile only with volumes that are out of print or otherwise exceptional or valuable. Knowing this, the people in the shop treat every book that comes through with the loving care it usually deserves. Here, the spine is re-rounded. Covers of a washable plastic called library buckram are glued to cardboard stiffeners and fitted to the books they will enclose. Then they're removed and finished off all around. Because of the individual skilled attention given each volume and the quality of materials used, a book after rebinding like this is far stronger than it ever was before. In addition to rebinding old books, the firm does an increasing amount of binding of trade publications and important papers, especially for those growing business and industrial libraries we mentioned. Finally, the new cover and the reconstructed book are joined. After standing overnight in an 800-pound press, the books are ready to go out and begin their second life of service. Centuries ago, European monks, painfully copying old documents by hand, maintained our contact with the past. Today, knowledge of the thinking of those who have gone before is kept alive in large part through the arts and skills of the bookbinder.